Big 12 Media Days wrapping up. And I was checking out some of the coverage, and Uncle Dennis is out there, Dennis Dodd, who will also will welcome him to Nashville next week for SEC Media Days. I think that right there, the Big 12 may be the most fun group of coaches to cover out of any conference in America right now. I was thinking about this earlier. I bounced it off some people. So Venables is out there. We just talked about him a lot earlier in the show. And you got that whole orbit of conversation around Brent Venables. Sark is out there. And any head coach at Texas always generates a lot of conversation. But think about like Joey McGuire from Texas Tech. People find out he's already officiated 2 weddings. He's got a 3rd coming up next spring. The dude is like a very, very hyper high school football coach, because that's what he was. And all of a sudden he's running a major college football program, but with that same high school kind of energy. And everyone loves him. And they're recruiting well out there, and they got a really good culture. They got the 4th best odds to win the conference this year. Dave Aranda on the other side of the state is as stoic as they come, as brutally honest as they come. Aranda, let me tell you something. I'll talk about Aranda right now. Dave Aranda is one of my favorite coaches I've ever been around, and I've only been around him once. But that was an interaction that left a lasting impression on me. And Dave Aranda, he is very measured. He's the opposite of what I've been for the past 30 seconds. He talks very slow. He's very measured. But he is not scared to critique himself publicly. And he did it again at Big 12 Media Days. And he said, there are 3 things that I really wish I could do different about last year. He said, I did not embrace the transfer portal, and I should have. And now we got an uphill battle on our hands as a result of that. He said, I tried to save some people instead of having boundaries, and really that bled into the 3rd thing he talked about, where it was I cared too much about saving maybe some individuals, and I didn't value what was best for the team. That's tough. It's one of a million different difficult things that are coming along with being a head coach or running an organization. Hey, pretty much every head coach deals with that. He'll talk about it publicly. I've always appreciated that about him. Now, as for Texas, Texas is favored to win the Big 12 this year. For all I know, Texas is going to go to the playoff. But I'm telling you right now, when I heard Quinn Ewers say, quote, we got kind of addicted to doing abs, hitting biceps and triceps, all that stuff. It was just fun. Red flag. Red flag. Popcorn muscle workouts, red flag. Now, fortunately, I know the strength and conditioning setup out there at Texas, and so I know they're working more than bis and tris and abs. It is not a beach body workout in Austin, Texas. But, and it's a big one. Actually, it's not, because they're not working glutes, as it turns out. Bis and tris and abs get you knocked off the ball. That's what happens. I know a lot of you out there, not at Texas, I know a lot of you out there playing high school football right now. And you got camp coming up, and you know what awaits you very, very soon. And a lot of you are going to fall into the trap of thinking you need to look good when you go to camp. And so you're hitting bis, you're hitting tris, and you're hitting abs, and all you're going to hit is the dirt. That's what you're going to hit. Because like Ndamukong Suh, for example, is one of the most dominant football players I've ever seen. Could not count a single abdominal muscle on him. I don't know how much he could curl. I don't know how much he could try press. I just know that it was like an automobile wearing a Nebraska jersey lined up over a center or over an offensive guard. Pure violence. Not many popcorn muscle workouts for Ndamukong Suh. Now, granted, this is a quarterback room we're talking about. But still, no. Just say no to popcorn muscle workouts, kids. Plus, if you're doing the other muscle groups the right way, your biceps get developed anyway. It's one of the big myths out there. You got to constantly work biceps to develop biceps. No. That has nothing to do with the Big 12, though. You know what does? Brett Yormark, conference commissioner. I don't want to mention any names, but sometimes I've been listening to some of these conference commissioners over the past few years, and it seems like they're a step behind. Brett Yormark's different. Brett Yormark sounds like he's a step ahead of the game. Doesn't sound like very many things have taken him by surprise. Conversely, it does sound like some of his decisions have taken his peers and the general college football public by surprise lately. That's a good thing. That doesn't mean the Big 12 is about to pull alongside the SEC and the Big 10 at the next stoplight. but it does mean that at least they're in a position where they're not constantly on the defensive. No one's talking about people raiding the Big 12 right now. No one's talking about the shaky Big 12 media rights deal because no one is raiding them. And they do have a secure media rights deal. You can't say the same for every other conference, can you? So at the very least, Texas and OU are on their way out. No one out there seems to be particularly terrified at that perspective. And also, you got some pretty good coaches walking in the door, too. I'm very excited to see what Gus Malzahn does in time or immediately, whatever. Gus Malzahn, man, that's its own story. That is its own 30 for 30. I always tell the story. I guess I can wrap it up tonight with it. One day, down the road, if you are currently 18 years old, let's just go to 36. So let's double your lifespan. And by 36, let's say you're married and you've got a couple of kids and a third on the way, and the oldest is a boy, and you're explaining to him about this guy, Gus Malzahn, that maybe he's still there, maybe he's not, but this guy, Gus Malzahn, is at Auburn, which at the time was the most pressure cooker job imaginable, and maybe it still is. And Malzahn goes to LSU, and they lose, and everyone's calling for his job, and then in the same year, he goes and beats Georgia when they're number one. Then he beats Alabama when they're number one. Then his agent, his name was Jimmy Sexton. Pay attention, this is where it gets really good. They push Auburn up against a wall the week of the SEC championship game, no less, and they say, we want a new deal. And Auburn gives them a new deal. Massive buyout. A couple of years later, same university, fires him. Gus Malzahn, both pockets full, decides he wants to get back into coaching. And he goes to UCF. So Gus Malzahn is being paid tens of millions of dollars by Auburn not to coach. He moves to Florida, and about 5 minutes later, someone knocks on the door. Hey, you having fun, Gus? Yeah, man, I love it down here. Palm trees all over the place. We didn't have those in Lee County, Alabama. What if I told you this program's going to the Power 5 a couple of years from now? Oh, really? So let's rewind. He was the head coach at Auburn. Then they paid him a ton of money not to be there. Then he went to a really good fit down in Central Florida. Then they rose in the ranks to Power 5 status. And Gus Malzahn ended up being like Warren Buffett of college football coaches, and also got right back in the mix because he's going to be right back in the mix. I always wondered what Central Florida would do if put on the premier stage, the Power 5 stage, whatever you want to call that in the future. I wondered the same thing about Houston. Now, Houston won't do it immediately, but I'm talking about over the next 10 years. Houston's been ready to do this. Central Florida's been ready. Cincinnati has been ready. They've been ready. And so now they're going to get to compete against the big boys. More specifically, they're going to get to play a schedule to where if they have 1 or 0 losses, no one will be able to question their strength of schedule anymore. They'll be in that playoff picture. So I'm looking forward to it.